Imagine you're alive 30,000 years ago. No house, no electricity, no weather app, no grocery store, no dry clothes waiting in a closet. Then it starts raining. At first, it's annoying. By the second day, it's a problem. By the fourth day, it could become a threat to your survival. Now here's the strange part. For most of human history, rain wasn't just weather. It was one of the most powerful forces shaping human life. And if you've ever imagined ancient humans simply sitting inside caves waiting for storms to pass, that's probably not what happened. In fact, some researchers believe long periods of bad weather may have helped shape storytelling, cooperation, and perhaps even some of the behaviors that make us human today. But we'll come back to that. First, we need to understand something surprising. Ancient humans weren't nearly as helpless as we imagine. Actually, in one important way, they may have been better prepared for endless rain than most modern people. Think about it. If a major storm knocked out power across your city for 2 weeks, how many people would know how to find food? How many could build shelter? How many could start a fire without a lighter? Probably not many. Ancient humans had no choice. Their entire lives revolved around adapting to uncertainty. And rain was uncertainty in its purest form. A single storm could transform the landscape overnight. Paths disappeared, rivers changed course, animal tracks vanished, dry ground became mud. The world they knew yesterday could look completely different tomorrow, which created a problem most people never think about: food. Today, if rain ruins your plans, you order takeout. For ancient humans, bad weather could make hunting dramatically harder. Imagine tracking an animal through a forest. Then hours of rain erase every footprint, every clue, every sign. Suddenly your best hunter is almost blind. And that's where the story gets interesting, because ancient humans didn't survive by being stronger than nature. They survived by becoming flexible. When large game became difficult to hunt, many groups shifted their attention elsewhere. Fish, shellfish, roots, tubers, nuts, small animals, whatever the environment offered. This ability to adapt may be the single most important reason humans spread across the planet. Not strength, not speed, flexibility, but even if food could still be found, there was another challenge, one that was arguably more important: fire. For modern people, fire is mostly decorative. For ancient humans, it was everything: warmth, protection, light, cooked food, dry clothing, safety, community. Lose your fire during a week-long storm and life becomes much harder very quickly, which raises an obvious question: how did they keep it alive? The answer is surprisingly clever. Many ancient groups likely carried embers from existing fires rather than starting new ones from scratch. Others protected fires carefully inside shelters. Some researchers believe maintaining a fire may have been one of the most important daily responsibilities within a group, because losing it wasn't merely inconvenient, it could be dangerous. But what happened around those fires may be even more important than the fires themselves. Picture the scene. Outside, rain pounds the landscape. Visibility is low, travel is limited. Hunting opportunities shrink. For the first time in days, everyone is gathered in the same place, talking, listening, waiting. And that's where a fascinating possibility emerges. What if some of humanity's oldest stories were born during moments exactly like this? We often imagine human progress happening while people were exploring, moving, hunting, building, but some of our most important ideas may have emerged while people were doing something far less dramatic: sitting together during bad weather, sharing stories, passing down knowledge, teaching children, explaining the world. Because if you're trapped inside a shelter while rain falls for days, eventually someone starts talking. And once someone starts talking, something uniquely human begins to happen. Information survives, experiences survive, memories survive. A good story can outlive the person who tells it. And before writing existed, stories were everything. They were history books, survival manuals, maps, warnings, lessons, entertainment. Entire worlds carried inside human memory, which means rain may have done something unexpected. It may have created opportunities for knowledge to spread, not because people wanted to stop working, but because the weather forced them to slow down. And that brings us to a much bigger question. What if ancient humans weren't merely surviving storms? What if storms were quietly helping shape human civilization itself? To understand that, we first need to forget everything we think we know about prehistoric life. When most people imagine ancient humans, they picture constant action: hunting mammoths, fighting predators, crossing vast landscapes, always moving, always surviving. But reality was often much slower and much wetter. For hundreds of thousands of years, rain wasn't an occasional inconvenience. It was a force that dictated nearly every aspect of life: where people lived, what they ate, how they traveled, who survived and who didn't. In fact, some anthropologists believe weather influenced human behavior more than almost any other factor. And nowhere was this more obvious than during long periods of rain. Imagine standing outside 30,000 years ago. Dark clouds cover the sky. Cold water falls relentlessly. The ground turns to thick mud. Visibility disappears. Animal tracks wash away. Firewood becomes damp. The temperature drops. Suddenly, almost every survival activity becomes harder. But here's where things get interesting. Ancient humans weren't passive victims of weather. They adapted in ways that might surprise you. The first thing they did was seek shelter, but not necessarily caves. Hollywood has convinced us that ancient humans spent most of their lives inside caves. The truth is much more complicated. Most prehistoric people probably lived in temporary shelters made from wood, animal hides, bones, branches, and plant materials. Some were remarkably sophisticated. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of mammoth bone structures built tens of thousands of years ago. These weren't random piles of bones. They were carefully designed living spaces. And during extended periods of rain, these shelters became critical. But shelter solved only one problem. Rain created another challenge, keeping people together, because when people couldn't travel, couldn't hunt effectively, couldn't move across the landscape, something else happened. They spent more time with each other. Think about your own life. Some of the deepest conversations happen during storms, when plans are cancelled, when you're stuck indoors, when the outside world fades away. Now multiply that by thousands of years. For ancient humans, rainy days may have created long periods of social interaction, storytelling, teaching, planning, bonding, passing knowledge between generations. Some scientists even speculate that language itself may have benefited from these periods of forced social gathering. It's a fascinating possibility. Rain may not have merely interrupted human activity, it may have helped create human culture. But there was still a major problem: food. Because rain doesn't care about your survival, and eventually people needed to eat. This is where another myth begins to break apart. Many people imagine ancient humans hunting every day. In reality, successful hunts were never guaranteed. Some days brought abundance, others brought nothing. During long periods of bad weather, hunting became especially difficult. Animals moved differently, tracks disappeared, visibility decreased, weapons became harder to use, energy expenditure increased, and every failed hunt carried risk. So, how did ancient humans survive? The answer reveals an important truth. Humans are not the strongest animals. We're not the fastest. We're not the most dangerous. But we are incredibly flexible. Ancient people relied on a wide variety of food sources: roots, tubers, nuts, seeds, shellfish, fish, small animals, stored foods, whatever was available. In many cases, rainy weather may have actually made certain foods easier to find. Earthworms emerged, plants became more accessible, water sources expanded, different ecosystems became active. Survival wasn't about one perfect strategy, it was about adaptability, and adaptability became humanity's superpower. But something even stranger happened during prolonged rain. People had more time to think. This sounds simple, yet it may have changed civilization itself. When survival activities slow down, the mind wanders. Humans begin asking questions, telling stories, imagining possibilities, reflecting on life, looking for patterns, wondering about the future. Many anthropologists believe creativity often emerges during periods when immediate survival pressures temporarily decrease, and rain naturally created those moments. Picture a small group gathered around a fire. Outside, water pounds the landscape. Inside, someone begins telling a story. Perhaps about ancestors, perhaps about animals, perhaps about spirits hidden in storms. The children listen, the adults contribute. The story grows, changes, spreads, and survives. Thousands of years later, that same human instinct still exists. It's why people gather around campfires. It's why storms feel strangely comforting. It's why storytelling remains one of the most powerful forces in human life. Rain didn't just shape survival, it shaped imagination. And yet, despite all these adaptations, rain could still be deadly. Flooding, hypothermia, disease, food shortages, collapsed shelters. Every storm carried risks. Nature was not romantic. It was unforgiving. Ancient humans understood this better than anyone, which may explain something curious about modern society. Today, many people see weather as background noise, an inconvenience, a forecast notification, something to complain about. But for most of human history, weather wasn't background. It was reality itself. Every cloud mattered. Every season mattered. Every shift in temperature mattered. Your ancestors paid attention because their lives depended on it. And perhaps some part of your brain still does. Have you ever noticed how rain changes your mood? Why certain storms feel calming? Why others create anxiety? Why cloudy days can make people reflective? Scientists continue studying these effects, but it's possible those responses reach much deeper into our past than we realize. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, rain wasn't simply weather. It was information, a signal, a warning, an opportunity, a challenge, and every human who survived learned to listen. The next time rain taps against your window, consider this. Somewhere in your evolutionary history, countless ancestors sat listening to that same sound, not knowing when it would stop, not knowing what tomorrow would bring, yet finding ways to adapt, to cooperate, to create, to survive. And perhaps that's the most important lesson hidden inside this question. When ancient humans faced days of endless rain, they didn't conquer nature. They learned to live with it, and in doing so, they developed the very traits that made us human: patience, creativity, community, resilience. Traits that still exist inside every one of us today, even if we've forgotten where they came from.